Welcome to Eat Something Sexy with our host, Amy Riley, and her guest. By the way, you're hearing this on malcolmpresents.com, and it's going to be a weekly feature, and she's going to give her expertise on aphrodisiac cooking. That sounds funny, aphrodisiac cooking?
Well, I mean, it's all about aphrodisiac foods, not just the cooking. That's what you do with it.
Aphrodisiac foods. Okay. Introduce our guest.
And so we're really lucky to have Annette Tomei with us. And Annette, I forgot to ask you how you would like to be introduced because your resume is so long. When I met Annette, she was working at the Culinary Institute of America. She is a graduate of the French Culinary Institute. She has also worked as an instructor at the French Culinary Institute. She has a master's degree in gastronomy from Le Cordon Bleu. You have, I can't even remember what all of your degrees in wine and spirits are, but that's key. Maybe you can fill us in because today we're talking spirits and sex.
Yes, which go together perfectly. And everything in moderation here, but deliciousness. So thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. A lot of times people still know me as Chef Annette, but lately I have stepped away from the actual cooking in kitchens and focused more on spirits and about wine. I am a certified spirits specialist from the Wine and Spirits Education Trust, and have just recently, as of today, officially, I'm an Italian wine scholar, a certified Italian wine scholar.
As they say in Italian, mazel tov.
Grazie. So today I'm going to be sharing one of my favorite flavor combinations, especially for the summer. It's hot. It's like record heat here right now. So I have this giant bowl of watermelon, all cubed up, ready to go. I have a not so giant bowl of cucumbers, all ready to go. I have some cocoa nibs here, some fresh mint, and most importantly, I have some good rum.
Ooh.
So what do you think is going to happen with that, Miss Amy?
It sounds like we're having salad and a shot of rum, or I'm hoping we're having salad and a shot. That sounds like my perfect dinner. I don't know.
Sounds good. That works for me.
I'll forget about the salad. Just give me the rum.
There's plenty to go around.
Yeah, there is.
Get it down to LA for you.
But by the way, when Amy told me what the topic was, I said spirits. So I didn't think about wine because somehow I don't think of alcohol as spirits. I was thinking of spirits.
Sorry. Oh, you thought we were going to have like an exorcism today?
Yeah, like a seance type of thing.
No, we're going to
let's see if I can make a genie come out of the bottle. How about that?
And I don't know
if bubbles.
I don't know if there's sex after life. That we'll have to think about.
I've never asked.
There's got to be something.
Who would you ask? That's
exactly.
a question.
My point.
I have a friend who's a medium. We can ask her.
Oh,
okay. We'll do a show on that. It'll be called Sex in the Afterlife.
That could be interesting.
But anyway, sorry for the interruption.
All good. So I was hoping, I know that I have chosen some ingredients that have aphrodisiac properties that I have learned about through my time spent with Amy. And this is a great mashup of something that's good for everybody and healthy on top of that. And you don't have to add the rum if you don't want to, but it definitely helps. But every single ingredient here, including, I am using a little bit of firewater bitters. I know Amy likes chilies, so we'll make this one a little tiny bit spicy. And
so I believe in that this is actually a variation on a soup recipe of yours that I love, that you can find on Eat Something Sexy, by the way. Yes. The actual soup version. It's a watermelon gazpacho that you created when you and I were doing a speaking engagement together on one of the sexiest islands on the planet, Jamaica.
Jamaica, I
Oh,
have to say Jamaica, man.
Jamaica, man. Very nice. I love it.
They're
There.
making me crazy.
That Jamaica me crazy. That too. That was an amazing adventure. That was one of our great adventures. And yes, you're right. This is all inspired by the watermelon gazpacho.
Which was inspired by the island.
Yeah, which was inspired by the island and the people on the island and the interactions we had. And now we're having the opportunity to take it a slightly different direction. And instead of with a spoon, it's with a straw this time. Or
Like it.
if
Well,
you're
I
not
mean,
doing straws, you can say.
We actually, this is so sad. We forgot the rum when we were in Jamaica. I don't know how we missed that part.
Yes.
And just did it as a soup. So I think you've really taken it to the next level.
And how can you forget rum in Jamaica?
We didn't forget to drink it.
Well, no, we didn't forget. Yeah, no, we drank plenty of rum. We just failed to put it with the watermelon.
Oh, okay.
Cacao nibs. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to get started here. And maybe while I'm running the blender, you can talk and I'll mute myself.
Sounds good.
And that will work. So
Yeah.
I'm doing a rough recipe here. My hands are clean and this is getting alcohol in it, so it's okay. My blender has measurements on the side. So I'm looking for about 4 cups of watermelon cubes, and I'm not pressing them down too much, but just a little bit. I'm not crushing them, but I want to make sure that I get a lot of watermelon in there for my 4 cups of cubes. And you can do this as a frozen drink and incorporate ice cubes, but I wanted to do something that people could do without having a powerful blender that crushes ice.
Right.
So I am going to make it almost like a juice. And you could do that in a food processor. You can do that in a blender. You could even do it with an immersion blender if you wanted to. Now I have some cubed up cucumber, and this is the the English cucumbers, the ones that are in the cellophane wrapper and don't have a lot of seeds. Much better. And I'm going to do 2 cups of those. So we have a total of 6 cups, which fits perfectly in the blender. Just a note on blending, you never want to fill it all the way to the top. You need to leave a little air gap there.
Now, Malcolm, I'm curious, how many cocktails have you drunk with cucumber?
Not that I remember anything.
This is fun, huh?
Remember.
Well, actually, my drink now is Scotch and soda. My kids have bought me now the Macallan. They seem to be buying me since the pandemic. They seem to be buying me more alcohol for birthdays, for Father's Days, for Christmas. So, I don't know if that's saying anything about me.
I don't know, but it may say
So the last ingredient,
outcome. Maybe your sex life may improve, because that's what we're here to talk about today.
Oh.
All right, what's
the
our
last ingredient going in is mint. So now you have 3, I'm putting in about 4 branches of fresh mint and just taking them off the stems. If you get some of those smaller tender stems, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm just ripping that off. And now I'm going to mute myself so that I can make the blender, and we'll go from there.
All right, so I know Annette specifically chose these ingredients. I told her I wanted to talk about spirits as an aphrodisiac today, and she specifically chose the additional ingredients to go in this recipe because they are also considered well known as aphrodisiacs. Watermelon actually doesn't have a very interesting history as an aphrodisiac, but it does have a good reputation, particularly when it came to light, gosh, maybe 10 years ago. It was discovered that the citrulline in watermelon could potentially help men in the same way as Viagra.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yes. And so watermelon suddenly became quite the aphrodisiac for men, basically overnight. And, of course, it's also great for everyone. It's got lycopene, also important to your sex life. And it's a great source of hydration, which will, keep you looking plumped and beautiful and feeling good. So there's a lot, watermelon definitely has a lot to offer as an aphrodisiac. And then the cucumber, which I thought you might be surprised to see in a cocktail, although I love this idea, is a lot of people think of it as an aphrodisiac for women because of a study. And we talked about this study last week. It was the same study. What were we talking about last week? Was it the licorice? No, it was, was it lavender? Was the aroma of lavender for men? I can't remember. It was the same study.
The licorice.
Was it the licorice? So it was cucumbers and licorice. The scent of cucumber and licorice is arousing to women. I don't really understand it. I'm not sure that I would, I could say that it was effective for me, but in clinical trials, they found that this is so. However, cucumber has quite a reputation as an aphrodisiac beyond recent studies. And
yeah, well, I have the male mind, so I'm thinking. I'm thinking of other uses.
I've never gotten the whole the appearance of a food makes it an aphrodisiac. I don't get the avocado as a testicle. I don't get.
Well, you wouldn't. I think it's a male thing.
Yeah, I don't get it, but.
If we have another show, I can explain it, but not in this show.
But cucumber, so there's that, and that's largely been the reason. But the most interesting thing I find about cucumber and the world of aphrodisiacs is that cucumber originally it's one of the oldest fruits and vegetables consumed by man. And it was actually cultivated by the Romans. They figured out how to cultivate cucumbers. And they also had a link between cucumber and sex, except it was that cucumber had a cooling effect on the body. And therefore it was not a food to serve someone on a honeymoon or a night of seduction, because they believed it would have an opposite effect. Now, later cultures around the world deemed it as a food of arousal. So it's funny how these things change, but you never know.
Well, my theory is with the right woman or the right man, anything is an aphrodisiac.
Well, I always point out, I'm careful too, when people ask me for suggestions for an aphrodisiac dinner or to plan an aphrodisiac menu, I point out that it's not just the right food for you, it's the right food for the other person. Doesn't matter what you like, but if you want them to get into that mood, you have to figure out what is that food for them.
Well, I don't know if I told this, in my single days, I always judged when I went out on a date how sexual or sensual a woman was, as if they enjoyed food. Mm-hmm. If I went out a blind date or a first or second date and we went out to a fine dinner and the woman was a picky eater and didn't like this or didn't appreciate the food, nah, she wasn't for me. And I found out most of the time that's right.
At restaurants, because that's a serious judgment.
Yeah. Well, there's restaurants. A lot of the food is the ambiance.
No, I'm not. Well, if I don't get a good meal, I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah, I appreciate a man who respects a woman who likes to eat.
Yeah, no, if my dates then didn't like to eat, they weren't for me. Because there was a time which my wife doesn't believe that I used to cook. But she doesn't believe me for.
Right. What was your specialty? Was it an aphrodisiac?
No, my specialty was a nice steak.
Not aphrodisiac.
No, I was raised a meat eater.
Okay.
And a nice steak, medium or rare, which was very juicy.
Right.
Or a glass of red wine, good wine.
How about a watermelon cocktail?
That I haven't had yet. I like watermelon because, again, as I said at the beginning of the show, watermelon takes me back to when I was a kid. And at that time, watermelon was only in season.
Sure.
June, July, people didn't import it from other countries.
Right.
So watermelon is synonymous with me with the beginning of the summer.
Yes.
And it had, a hot day in New York, which the humidity was crazy. to sit down and have a watermelon, have it squirt on you.
Refreshing. Yes. Well, as I mentioned, watermelon is a very hydrating food.
And then as a guy, I don't know if women did that, to spit out the pits and see who could spit the pit farther.
Well, I never had a contest, but we would just,
Well, I hit.
Now you can't get a watermelon with seeds. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Like they don't exist.
Oh,
My children did
Kids
not
wouldn't know what to do with them if it did.
No, they would have no idea. They would, in fact, there was one seed in a watermelon once and my daughter screamed.
A bug.
Yeah.
I must be getting older because now I like seedless watermelon.
Well, it's all you can buy, so good thing. All right, so back to the aphrodisiac side of things.
What are we doing now, Annette?
So you have a choice here. Like I pureed this very fine, and if you want, you can just drink it with the pulp in it. The pulp's good, and
I like
it's
texture.
actually
I love a good texture.
good for you. So I, under normal circumstances, would go ahead and leave it all in and just add my rum directly to that and pour it over ice, or I would have put some ice right in the blender. 2 cups of ice added into what was already in the blender will give you a nice frozen drink and leave everything in. But the problem I have with this, well, not personally, but as far as being a chef and or being a mixologist and sharing this with others, recipe wise, it separates. It's just natural. Watermelon and cucumber juice both separate from their pulp and will leave, it's not the most attractive color, the pulp that's left over here. It's more a gray pink than a normal pink. So the professional in me removes the pulp and then leaves myself with this gorgeous red juice that's ready to go. It's a presentation thing. It has nothing to do with needing to strain it. This will still require a little bit of stirring after it sits in the refrigerator. You can refrigerate it for about 3 days.
Oh,
and
wow.
Just give it a little stir and it'll be fine. It'll come right back together again. And
wait, how many cocktails are we looking at here? How many cocktails?
We're looking at about 4 cocktails here. So 4 cups of watermelon, 2 cups of the cucumber will give you a total of about 4 cocktails.
Okay, so that's Saturday afternoon for me.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
But that's all you can make in one batch in a blender. This one watermelon here, one standard size watermelon will make about 12 cocktails. So
how much rum in it? How much rum in it?
That is completely up to you. Now, if I were doing this professionally, I would do about 1.5 ounces, maybe 2. But I'm going to actually, and I might actually do that. If you don't have a jigger, the measuring for cocktails, which most people, unless you are into cocktails, you probably don't have one at home, but you probably have a tablespoon measurer. And 1 tablespoon is 1/2 ounce. So you can just put in like 3 to 4 tablespoons
per drink
over ice.
Tell us about our rum that we're having today.
Okay, the rum we're having today is a Diplomatico Manchuano, which is an exceptional quality rum from Venezuela that has, I think it has everything that I'm looking for in a rum. It's got that bit of earthiness, but more, it's focused in on the spice and the caramel aromatics, and it has that smell of the islands that you're looking for. So it's one of my personal favorites. It is not a dark rum, but it is an aged rum.
Right.
So the color you see comes from the aging process. Now in this cocktail, you might want a white rum if you don't want to change the color. It is going to impact the color of the juice. But that aged color also gives flavor. That's where those spicy, delicious flavors come from.
And it adds to the body as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could tell you're a chef because when I apply the rum or any alcohol to a concoction, I pour it.
Oh, you just pour? Well, you can pour and count. I mean,
I pour, the wrist has to feel it, the
oh,
turn
you
of the
just
wrist.
feel it. I like this.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's, and then, I'll take a sip. And if I don't taste the alcohol, then I pour more in. I have to taste the alcohol. It can't be blended into the drink. I mean, watermelon is fine and cucumbers are fine, but I want to taste that rum.
So you must love a Mai Tai where you've got your layers.
Yeah.
I was taught by a friend in Hawaii that the proper way to drink your Mai Tai is to quite literally take your straw and drink each layer as you go down. Don't stir it. Drink each layer so that you can taste each thing on its own and get to that zing.
Yeah, I think
and you get to the end and it's like, whoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be good going down, and then it's good when you get up and you feel a little woozy. Drink is good.
I make a much lighter drink because it takes a few before I would ever feel woozy when I'm making a cocktail.
Yes, it would take me a couple. So I should have stirred it. That's one thing I realized was I was listening to the conversation and not paying attention to that I didn't stir my drink. So I poured my rum over the ice. I poured the juice over the rum, give it a good stir. I garnished with a sprig of mint, and I put a sprinkling of cocoa nibs. And these are just unsweetened little fermented cocoa beans that would be processed into chocolate. Amy can probably tell you all of their wonderful benefits as well. If you want to get a little chocolate into your life.
Anything that you may link, any ideas that you may link with chocolate being an aphrodisiac, it's really because of the cacao. But let's talk about texture, because in this application, you're having so little cacao that you're not going to have any of those like euphoric effects, orgasmic effects, or whatever you think you're going to get from chocolate, but you are going to get awesome texture. And I firmly believe that aphrodisiacs are experiential. And so texture is a part of that. So what happens when you add these nibs? Like, do you get them at the end? Do you get them at the beginning? Where are you tasting these?
So if you're drinking this drink frozen with a straw, they're going to come up. It's going to be like bubble tea.
Woo!
Where you're going to get like a little bit of cocoa nib here and there as a little surprise, which is lovely. I love that. Not just textural contrast, but also it's almost a temperature contrast because you're getting that crunch without it being ice or being cold. The way it is now, you probably, if you're drinking with a straw, you'll still get a similar effect, but it's more just a garnish on here and something that's almost emulates the seeds that aren't in the watermelon. So it's got a visual component to it.
And it's kind of a conversation starter. If this is a first, second date, this is like, well, now we have something to talk about.
That's it. And then we have something to toast with. So
cheers. I'm almost drunk on my bubble. Cheers. And it's nice to see you.
Cheers. Good to see you.
No one was telling me about the drinks. I don't have my drink here. I'm sorry. Well, you're 3 hours later. It's only a little after 2 now.
The assignment when you're doing spirits is to have your spirits.
I put I put a little float of some of the firewater bitters on top of this, and when I took a sip, it just like peeked out here and there, and it got this little teeny tiny little sparkles of heat on the palate. So you were talking in your last episode about the feeling of the chilies on your lips, and you can feel your lips warming up and tingling. That's exactly what is happening here with this drink.
Oh my goodness, this is.
By the way, did you have a recipe for that that's printed out? People that they could email you and get a recipe. Do you have that ready?
Yes. It is in a Word document now, and it will be posted on Eat Something Sexy sometime in the near future.
In the meantime, you can get the soup, the very similar watermelon soup, which will certainly get you ready for summertime. But we'll get this one on Eat Something Sexy as soon as we can. I'm very excited.
The question is, when you prepare that drink, are you supposed to send your children over to your in-laws so your house is free?
My goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know, well, my kids now are grown up, they're 26 and 24, but I remember the imaginations we had to do when they were, 5, 6 years old.
Okay, kids, it's early bedtime
Yeah.
night.
Yay! You're gonna have a camp out in your room.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, you want to watch shows in bed for like 2 hours? Perfect.
Yeah. Or
Awesome.
mommy and daddy, why is the television so loud? Can't you hear?
Oh,
The problems of having children.
that is not a problem I have.
It's an adventure. It's an adventure. You know what? It keeps you creative.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
Adds a little spice.
Yes.
It's a little spice, very good for our cooking show.
Yes.
Well, Annette, thank you
So-
so much for a brand new cocktail. I appreciate you coming up with this one for us, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure to be here. It's really fun to get to, even if it's just on Zoom, spend some time with you and doing what we enjoy most. Little champagne, nice little cocktail.
How did you
good
guys meet?
conversation.
It's gonna sound so nerdy, at a culinary symposium. It was nerdy.
Oh, it was nerdy. We are nerdy. I am nerdy. I will fully own that.
Now, let's face it, we looked around that auditorium and said, who else looks like they don't belong? And that's how we became friends. I
It's
mean,
like,
yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned in the last show that I found the people that I know that are chefs are very passionate. They're passionate about what they do. I used to, I think on the last show I was talking, I used to work for a classical music station in Los Angeles, KFAC. And for some reason I got involved with selling to restaurants. And they're very, creative restaurants that were chef owners. And I'd go there in the morning, see them, cutting up, dicing, and they were so passionate about it that they had, I mean, each thing they took, they were caressing the vegetables and chopping it up. And anything they did, they gave me, hey, take a little taste. What do you think? They were proud of their work. Obviously, like you're proud of your drinks.
absolutely. And yeah, as a chef, I fully believe in loving what I do and loving the items that I'm working with. As when I was working in restaurants, I usually work in small, more high-end restaurants where I had the opportunity to work with the type of produce and the type of food that inspired me. And I was able to go to markets and to smell and touch, and it made me more creative. It made me want to get in the kitchen and have that experience so that I could share that experience with the people in the dining room. And that's kind of the same way I feel about anything I do to this day. And it's mostly always cooking either for friends or family, or just for myself. I'm a hedonist. I want the best of the best. I want it to be delicious. I want it to be exciting. And I love sharing that.
Yeah. Well, as you're talking about, people who don't realize it, that everything connected with the body, with the senses, leads to not necessarily sex, but to a certain passion, to a certain feeling, the touch of something. As you say, when you touch the vegetables, you're fresh, you crack it, you hear the sound, or you have the smell, the aroma.
Mm-hmm.
We have to start learning to use all our senses.
Absolutely.
Aside from the sense, obviously,
they're a gift. Take advantage of all of it.
Annette, before we go, can you please, people may want to know more from you. And I know you're doing some pretty exciting Zoom classes and things right now. Can you please tell us how people can find you?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a website called Wander, Eat, and Tell. It also goes by Chef Annette Tomei. So either way, you'll end up there. I have Zoom happy hour wine and spirits classes that are designed for private groups. So you get a dozen of your friends together, or whatever, however many of your friends you want. You pick a topic and everybody gets their own, like say it's Sauvignon Blanc. Everybody can get their own Sauvignon Blanc, whatever their favorite one is. I do a class that is engaging, where we taste together, we talk about what we're tasting, but you also learn something. I want you to walk away knowing why it is that was your favorite Sauvignon Blanc and how to describe it, so that when you go to the store again, you can find something like it. If you want to try something different, you at least know how to use your words. They're really fun classes. And then after the class part's over, I leave my Zoom connection on. They get to have they continue their happy hour without me. And then I'm also doing cookbook clubs with the 92nd Street Y in New York City and Kitchen Arts and Letters bookstore, where the group gets 4 cookbooks. We spend 8 weeks together cooking from these books and talking about it, having these meetings. And then sometimes the authors of the books join us for interviews, and it's all done on Zoom. I have embraced the online aspect, and so it's been really fun. I'm looking for a pivot to in person someday too, but for now this works great.
Now I love the Zoom. I've only been doing this now for since the pandemic. Doing shows, but here I have, you're in Oregon right now, you're in New England, I'm in California, and we're doing the show,
and we get to be together, we get to enjoy each other's company, and I love it.
But you reminded me of, again, going back to when I was worked with a lot of restaurants. A lot of the times they would have these private parties that the winemakers would put on, and we'd go, to sit down. Generally, it's like 10, 15 people, and we'd have a course, and then the salesperson from the winery would come and say, and now with this course we drink, and they would pour the wine, and they say, okay, taste of this, and this goes with the food. Then they had some sort of sorbet that would clean the palate. Then you would have the next, a dish, and they do the same thing. And now with this, we have, and they would mention the wine. And at the end, we'd have a port. I remember I fell in love with ports at the end of it, except they are so damn expensive. I remember back then, going back in the 80s, that there was like $20, $30 a shot. Oh my God, you had to be rich anyway. But anyway, thank you very much. Anytime you want to come back, well, to work with it, to do something with Amy, you're more than welcome. I think so, Amy, right?
Absolutely. Are you kidding?
Yep. I am always down for the adventure.
And it's fun. And listen, and another thing I think of, by the way, our half hour was up about 5 minutes ago, but since it's, we control the time. We're not cut off. I was thinking like an X-rated type of thing that you have with dinners and having families and drinking wine, but that's for another show.
Oh man, that'll be for a really other show for me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We'll have you have some of your watermelon and cucumber, and then we'll talk.
Yes, let us know what you think of the recipe, Malcolm.
I'm gonna try it. I got to get the recipe, and
Love it.
my wife will make it, because she is very creative. She likes cooking, and she likes putting things together, and which I don't have. She has an innate taste, which probably you guys do also. You put something together, and all of a sudden, I think a little bit of this would go with it. You sort of, in your mind, you can taste it, like somebody that's into music can hear the notes in their head and go, what goes with what. My wife can taste what goes with what, and I assume you guys do that also.
Absolutely.
It's
part of the fun.
And it's a lot of it, because you like creating that. But I will definitely give her the recipe, and I'll let you know what happens, the results. But I might have to tell you off the air about it, not on the air, because I'm not so private, but she's a very private person.
That's sweet.
But anyway, if you could tell your friends about the show, it's on malcolmpresents.com, and it's Eat Something Sexy.
Yes.
And I have I have other shows on it. I have shows about ecology, about nature, about politics.
That's amazing.
Yeah, again, it's all a platform, malcolmpresents.com. And again, I think it's something new. There might be other people doing it, but because the podcast basically, you know, one show on a podcast, and that's what they promote. I'm trying to create like a network,
That's awesome.
my own network.
That is a great
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
creative
but
way
anyway,
of creative use of this.
But anyway,
All
thank
right.
you very much. Amy, do you have any final words?
No, thank you. Well, thank you so much. Thank you both, and have a very fun week.
Yeah, and do we have anything planned for next week that you know right now?
I do not have a guest lined up,
Okay.
so stay tuned.
Well, you could have a recipe. We don't have to have guests necessarily each week.
Okay.
Anyway, guys, have a great
All right.
week. Be safe out there.
Cheers, everybody.
It's
It was so good to see you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.